Hello everyone, welcome back to the conclusion of the Leça Chess Open 2026. Today I'm going to show you the last two rounds, so round number 8 and 9. The tournament was going pretty well up until round 8, and now I got paired against a Peruvian international master, Diego Flores, that was actually playing really well in this tournament. And there's even a funny story about this because basically I trusted a friend of mine to tell me like what the pairings were, and he told me that I was playing the other Peruvian strong player in the tournament. So I literally like prepared against that guy, and then I sat down at the board, and the name was of someone else, right? That I was not expecting, and I even told the arbiter like, "Oh, I think you made a mistake. I think you put the name tag for the wrong player." And then he showed me the pairings, and I realized, yeah, it's it's me that was mistaken. Okay, so let's get into the game. I went for Najdorf and this bishop d7 line. In my opinion, bishop d7 is much simpler for black than knight d7, but it might give less winning opportunities. Even though I feel like it still leaves plenty of pieces on the board. And we go for this line, which is one of the main ones, I guess. Take, bishop g7. And he decides to give up the bishop here. Okay, this is still quite thematic. And then pawn to c5. I feel like this move is important. Otherwise, black may even sometimes be able to play c6 to c5 himself. And in general, this puts some pressure. Okay, castles, and now bishop g5. Around around this point, the computer says I can and should take on c5, which of course came into my mind, but again, as I have said many times before on the channel, I do have a certain difficulty in going for lines that mess up your pawn structure. So in general, I'd rather keep it fluid and intact. Some of that comes down to style, but sometimes it's just, I just had a better opportunity at hand. And here it's one of those times because after this relatively forced sequence, I can end up playing the move knight d7, which I missed. So f2 to f3 is the only thing I considered, and now I missed this move knight d7. Very strong. I guess he trades, and at the end of the day, he's not really getting back my pawns, even though they're doubled and weak. They're even though they're weak, they're strong in that they exist, and the bishop pair is also very good here. So this is probably better than what I did, but queen b8 is fine. Queen d2, and around this point, I started thinking for ages. That's also a mistake that I do fairly often, which is that I don't know. I kind of in classical chess, I have a completely different mindset to blitz or a faster time control, and I actually enjoy sitting down at the board and just taking like 20 minutes to make a move, just thinking about random things, calculating random lines. But it's not a good thing from a practical stance. So around this point, I was starting to seriously consider doing pawn to d5. And the reason why I didn't do it immediately, I believe, was actually bishop f4. And now I was a bit unsure about where to put the queen. For example, like if I just put it somewhere, let's say on b7, I wasn't sure whether or not he could go bishop d6 and then e5. I wasn't sure about this. Uh, and so I thought that the only square that could prevent that would be queen b4. But but nothing, I guess. I'm not sure what exactly I missed here because I even saw this cute little tactic that goes a3, and now my next move is relatively forced, but it's kind of easy once you see that it's an option. Knight e4, and if he takes, I can just take here. If he takes my queen like this, at the end of the day, I'm winning a pawn with this tactical sequence. But now that I come to think of it, I'm not sure what exactly I missed. But okay, I went rook e8 first and only then d5. But again, I was spending too much time. This involves a pawn sacrifice, of course. He can take and take on d5. I was, I barely considered this as a serious option. I thought he would be going for just some position like this, take on d5, and then take on e8, something like this. I was inclined to take back with the bishop, and I guess some position like this. But again, I thought I was completely fine here with the bishop pair. Instead, he snatches a pawn, but does put the pressure on me. Now, my original idea was to go queen b6 and go into this position, take, 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 which I probably should have done. But eventually I thought that I could be a little bit more ambitious and also keep the bishop pair. And so I took back. This is still fine, but I just think that maybe queen b6 is an easier route. So I take back, he takes. And now again I got more ambitious than my original considerations. So my idea was just to go bishop g7, you know? Just bishop g7, and in my opinion, these positions are very, very close to full equality, uh, or at least let me put it this way, they're quite easy to play for black, and it's, I would say, very hard for white to make something of this pawn majority here on the queen side. So I would be quite happy with a scenario like this, and the queen is just coming out to d6. But then I thought, then again, I could be a bit more ambitious and go bishop e5. So do the same thing, but maybe win a tempo on the pawn. Now, the first thing that we missed, and luckily I say we and not just myself, otherwise it would have been kind of the end, is knight f3, where of course we just considered queen takes b2, and I thought I was fine, basically. I didn't calculate too much. But the computer points out this only move rook a d1. And so it turns out that even after I trade the queens, I cannot find a way to save this bishop that doesn't allow either knight c7 or knight f6. So white is actually winning here. For example, bishop g7, knight e7, check. Okay, instead he played a move that, I mean, literally blew me off the board, which was rook takes e5. Computer says it's a mistake, to my surprise. Okay, I mean, I barely looked at this. I saw this like on the corner of my eye, when you're about to make your move and you're just doing the last minute tactical checks. Okay, the point of this is to make the hardest move in chess, knight back. And then, I mean, it's funny, when he played this, it literally took me like 3 minutes or more to realize even what his idea was, which is just insane. Okay, he takes, and his point is that on the next move is coming in with queen d4. And it's hard to prevent this fork on f6. For example, queen d6, queen d4, rook e6. And I wasn't sure about, for example, the main thing I considered was rook d1, bishop c6, and then he cashes back the exchange. And I was a bit uneasy about this endgame because he's very close to going rook a6 and keeping my rook captive forever. So there's that. I should probably find some ways to immediately activate myself. Instead, the computer says knight g5 just wins. And I missed here after rook e5 that he has knight e4. So instead of all that, I went queen g7. I thought it was a bit easier. I also missed an important little detail here, which is a bit annoying, which is that after knight takes, I don't have time to mess up his pawn structure with this. I think this would again be kind of an easy hold. It's hard to make use of the majority here, and with the major pieces being present on the board, I feel like his king is going to be, out in the open and very susceptible to checks and perpetuals. But okay, I had to take back. Now knight d4. And I gotta tell you, this position, even though it feels like I'm very active and stuff, I felt that in practice it was extremely hard to defend. And I didn't see, I mean, I wasn't giving up or anything, but I didn't think that I had many chances in a practical game. Like, also, my opponent was up like 30 minutes on the clock, and he was still playing super fast. Okay, I provoked some stuff. He goes king f2, h5. This h5 is a mistake from a practical standpoint because after queen c3, I have to find an only move, which is basically impossible. Okay. I mean, I'll just tell you, the only move here for black is queen c7, which I cannot even explain other than it's what the computer wants. I mean, I can explain it to some extent because I missed a very important tactical detail once more. So I had planned to go h4 here, actually, in this position, which is an interesting enough move. I mean, if he takes like this, queen c6, I can take rook d4, and because his king is so weak and this pawn serves to aid some, you know, the delivery of some perpetuals, I thought that this position was quite decent. And if knight takes, I have a check first, and he even loses material because I'm taking and taking the rook. But what I had missed from afar is that he has knight e6 or knight f5. Yeah, and this is basically a lights out. It's a very pretty tactic as well. So the queen is on prise, so is the rook, and I cannot defend both and the mate on g7. So there's a lot of things going on. Okay, the main line is just this, and he takes back. So I had to improvise. And I didn't find this queen c7 move, of course. So I played bishop e8, which is the only thing that came to mind. But now this is trivially lost, actually, or very close to it, because I have to trade the rooks, or sorry, the queens, and sometimes the bishop is better than the knight in these endgames where there's pawns on both flanks. But here, the thing is that the bishop will be controlled by his pawns and pieces with great ease. Okay, let's carry on. My position is degrading. And eventually here, I played rook d7. Okay, I think he had a really easy force to win here with b4. King e7, and now this move that he probably missed just takes on f7. b5 next, and he's going to be up 2 pawns, so that's a little bit too much. I actually thought at the board that like I was already envisioning this, and I thought, yeah, I will play this out until knight takes f7, and I'll resign. I will literally resign in this position. But he played knight b5, uh, which is still good. But I guess it makes matters a little bit more complicated. Okay, here a5 is a really easy move. I mean, he was a bit overconfident to my fortune at this point, and he was playing a bit too fast. So there was no need for it. He had like more than 20 minutes. A5 is really easy. For example, my idea was to go around, but he can just go b4 and then just give up the pawn to get the king closer, and the king is a little bit too close to the pawn. So there's no saving this already. But instead he took back. This is a mistake because it allows rook d3, which he missed because he was like blitzing out his moves. And then g4. So yeah, a couple of weird decisions from him, honestly. But g4 does contain an interesting threat. If you want to pause the video now, after it takes and b6. If you want to pause the video now, black has its only move to stay alive in the game. And I'm actually kind of proud that I saw it because it's not that it's particularly hard for a strong player, but like I feel like if I'm not on the right frame of mind, I'm missing my opponent's ideas and resources left and right. And here it just wasn't the case. I could see like with some clarity that what he wanted to do, and I was able to put up some resistance. So the only move here is g5. Okay, what he wants in order to understand g5, you need to understand what he wants to do. He wants to push g5 himself. That's why he played g4. And after, let's say, king d7, he parks the rook on f6, and then he plays pawn to f4. And this is like the setup that you can only dream of. Okay, the king is coming in next, and it goes into the position, escorts the pawn, while all of his things are defended. So there's no breaking his setup there. So g5 is really important. Now I come in with the king, and also at this point, even though I was super down on the clock, I was able to find the spoiler alert, the drawing mechanism that occurred in the game. I'm still, kind of baffled that that actually happened, but it did. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. f6, king c3, and again he was blitzing out his moves. He thought he was gonna win, but after king d6 and check and rook b1, king c4, rook b2, it stands to reason that that this is a fortress. So white has no way to get into the position with the king, either through a6 or through f5. There is no way to do it. Again, remarkable. I have never seen this exact concept in this kind of endgame where you have a pawn on the 7th rank and pawns on the other side. It's a very typical endgame, and I have never seen this defense like ever. Uh, but it, but it happened. But it existed, and I'm glad it did. So it's just a fortress. Rook b4, cutting off his king, and we made a draw. Incredible save, really incredible save, and all that it took for him was to take a little bit longer to consider some of my moves. But hey, everyone makes mistakes, I guess. And I just need to plug the charger here. Okay, now on to the final game of the tournament. As always in open tournaments, it was in an early round, an early morning round, and I slept no more, no less than 5 hours for this game. So let's take a look. Okay, my friend Bruno had suggested that I go for uh, this this line in the Najdorf, and now my chess base froze. Chess base, please cooperate. He suggested that I go for this line in the Najdorf. I mean, it's the third Najdorf or fourth that I played in this tournament alone. I mean, I do love a good Najdorf, either with white or with black, but I don't know, four is a bit too much. Bishop g5 and queen f3. This is quite rare. The main line goes f4 and only then queen f3. So queen f3, knight d7, castles, and bishop e7. Turns out this is a bit of a mistake. I mean, go figure. These Sicilian positions are quite difficult. But the thing is that somehow this gives me time to go g2 to g4, which is what I do. And now he made a very weird decision to go take the pawn. I don't think it's that hard to see that this is. I mean, maybe you can't see that it's playing bad with clarity, but you can definitely see that it's hella dangerous. And there's no real need for it. I mean, black is not really getting checkmated that soon. Okay, bishop e2, f4, just gaining time, resting his knight. And now I had many options, many good moves. I decided to calculate what I did for a long time, and okay, I did find a good continuation, but maybe f5 was even from a practical standpoint easier to carry out. For example, 95 and I don't know, putting pressure on e6, maybe queen h3 or something like this. But e5, of course, is very thematic and has to be good. Knight d5, take, take, knight d5, pawn takes, f5. I was playing well at this point. This was, by the way, the best sequence of moves from the computer. And now it's funny, I did consider and basically did think that my opponent was going for this line, which the computer deems as best. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I'm just a pawn. I'm healthy as a horse here, but I did think he was going for this. Instead, he played knight e5 and queen f8. Also, he told me after the game the main line that he missed is that after knight f4, queen g7, queen takes e5, I have this very important move, f5 to f6. So just cutting off this pressure from the queen, and now my queen is attacking his rook. Rook is coming to e1 next, and that's basically game. So he takes queen f8, queen f6. This was a bit ridiculous, honestly. Queen g2 is much, much easier. And I'm just recollecting, regaining my pawn here on d5 with a beautiful position. You know, bishop d7, take, castles, and oh, computer even points out bishop a6. Wow, okay. That's great. Instead I go for this. The advantage isn't really spoiled, but it's diminished. King b1, f6. And at this point, I started to think for a long time, and I couldn't really, I wasn't sure about what I should do here. For example, I ended up going 96, takes takes, but this is always like a bit double-edged. Of course, white is better here. There's no question about it. But this is always a bit of a double-edged sword because I know from experience that it's hard to win these positions when the knight is on e5. I mean, it's the only good piece that black has, but it really glues the whole position together. Instead, I I was taking ages to calculate this. Bishop h5, king e7, and now knight e2, bishop e8, and now knight to f4. Um, Now, if he takes, if he takes with the bishop, knight takes d5. The king has to go to the only square where it doesn't get checked by the knight. And now queen d4, bishop takes d1, queen b6, king e8, queen b7, and okay, I can already see that I missed an important detail at the end of the line. Rook d8, and I thought that I was kind of no, I just thought that this didn't work because on king c7 the only thing I saw is king f7, knight e6, and queen e7, and I thought and the attack just runs out of steam. But I can already see that I missed this queen d5 check detail. Kind of nice. Now if king e7, it's a mate in one, and if king g7, I collect the queen. Okay, that's very nice. So all this stuff was just leading to a draw. I thought it was actually leading to a loss, maybe. But this idea is very interesting. This idea to come around with the knight. Okay, I decided to ditch all that. Play knight e6, take, castles. Rook f1, rook e8. This move was faulty in my opinion. I didn't understand why he didn't play queen e7 or rook h6. Take, a3, make a flight square, and now is where I started to go wrong. Again, I took too much time around this point, and I didn't have that much left. I had 20 something minutes. I burned all my time until I had like 8 minutes or something. This was a very poor decision in terms of time management, but I couldn't. I was being unable to actually come up with a solution here. So the most obvious move, which I should have done, of course, is to do this. Take and take. The pawn on e6 is one of the main, or the main advantage in my position. But what I didn't like about this is that somehow, I mean, I can't really understand what the rook is doing on f6 in terms of, offensive stuff. It's completely controlled by the knight on e5. So, but of course, I mean, the obvious argument is that black has no moves either. So I'm just taking on h5 next and doing whatever I want. I should have went for that. Instead, I traded on h6 and decided to simplify the game towards this. Now, the problem with this is that there's a high likelihood that we'll exchange the h pawn for the d pawn, which happened in the game. Computer still points out like h4 and gives actually a pretty significant 1 point lead to white. But instead of this, maybe bishop f1 was smarter. I thought that he could just take with a rook and go knight g4. But I don't have to take on g4. Yeah, that makes sense. I can just take on d5. Okay, so like if he cannot do that, then he's kind of screwed because the bishop is just going to h3 next, and maintaining the pawn, the thorn on e6. Okay, instead we go for this, then bishop f1. I had a faint idea to go bishop g2 and take on d5, play that position. His king is weaker. I still felt like I had great chances here, but it's just not that easy. If bishop g2, then I spotted that he has queen g4. This is extremely annoying. Take, h3. Computer says h4 is the only move. I didn't consider that. h3, knight e3, rook e1, d4, and like, yeah, I didn't think I had any chances here. By the way, what's the difference with h4? Let me just check. d4, h5. I guess the pawn is just one square more advanced. Okay, I went bishop h3, queen g8. Tried to set up some battery, but his counterplay is too annoying. I mean, I kind of think he blundered rook d5, but I guess it doesn't make that much of a difference. The d5 pawn was doomed to just disappear anyways. So queen h8. I didn't even see that. The only thing I considered was this. And now it takes, and this is just leading to a draw as well, like check. And what was it? No, I was mainly considering, yeah, rook takes h2, check. Oh, the computer says this is winning. I thought this was still a draw because he has this check here. For a moment, it seems that I'm gonna win because I have this threat and the mate. But I thought this was just a draw. This and this. Apparently, it leads to a win. This. And now only move rook c8. Well, setting up queen e8. Interesting. I mean, I guess it was kind of close. That was kind of close to being the game continuation. But he played better. Just this, rook e1. Okay, here I offered a draw after bishop e2, and he declined, which was a bit off-putting. But especially in the upcoming position, it was off-putting that he declined the draw, because I was pressing for a win the whole game, and he was that close to losing. And now he's trying to win this, really? And he also declined the draw here, man. But here, you're out of your freaking mind. Like, seriously. Against a 2350 opponent, like, you're out of your mind. Anyways, we made a draw a couple moves later. So that was the tournament. We finished on 6.5, I believe. Actually, let me just confirm that really quickly. It was a pretty good tournament, plus 13 in ELO, which is 1.3 Ks for me. Usually we measure the variance in ELO by the K that you have, which is a technical thing in the ELO calculation formula. But yeah, we finished in the 14th place. The win on the last round would have done wonders for me, but I couldn't manage it. Also, we make an IM norm. I just realized I hadn't even clocked that. Yeah, 14th place plus 13 of ELO. The last round was a pity. If I would have won that, I would have been on like plus 20 or something. But okay, I mean, you have to be happy with what you have. It was still a pretty good tournament. And now, in 2 weeks, I will play another tournament here in Portugal, the Leça Chess Open, where I will even be streaming as well. So that'll be a bunch of fun. I'm looking to have some guests on the channel commentating the games. And I will see you guys with that. Peace out, and I'll talk to you soon.